Teleios by Asvoria K. Prologue. On Kehefkans, the second of Weyekie, the name given by my father. I am the youngest descendant of the noblest Weyekie family, the servant of Thoth. I am blessed with the privilege and selected by my lord to be his oracle. When I was 16, the Roman Emperor Octavius sent a messenger to my father. For the cultural and religious exchange of wisdom, they requested. The youngest of Weyekie, they requested. Praise Thoth. What an honor. It's our family's duty to preach the words of Thoth to this foreign emperor. And I had been destined by my lord when I was named after the great An-Kehefkans who served the north. And thus, with my servants and some gold, I traveled to Rome. When I arrived, I saw Octavius, a glorious man of wisdom on his throne. He named himself Augustus the Magnificent. But why? And my lord's voice whispered to me. He is now Augustus, the Greater. He abandoned his Octavius Gentis. He erased his own name, that name tied to the plebeians, so that he may claim to be part of the partition. With 3 of his advisors, he gathered all of the great leaders, priests, and aristocrats across all states of his synod. "What's your name?" the emperor asked, and I was surprised. He was talking to a young Macedamian boy around 3 years old. "Julie-chan, he, the round boy replied with a cuddly smile on his face, but his innocent giggles stupefied the crowd. "Julie-chan, that's Julius in Greek," the other man whispered in fear. "He has the blood of Alexander of Thebes, your majesty," one of the 3 advisors spoke in a deep tone. "Like a little fat calf," the emperor huffed. "Teleios, this will be your name," he ordered. To my surprise, that wasn't a cultural or religious exchange. "You, the black one, what's your name?" "My name is Ankefekans, the second of Weyekie, your majesty." "That's too complicated." "He is the blessed priest of Mercury, your majesty," his advisors added. "Mercury who? I am loyal to my master of knowledge, the almighty Thoth. Who is Mercury?" "Ah, I see. The all-knowing messenger oracle. I'll call you Pedosiris." I was stunned, unable to move my mouth. "O Thoth, my lord, have mercy upon me. My name, it was taken from me, and I felt a strong power, like a pair of invisible hands holding my jaw tight. For the first time in my life, as the priest of the messenger god, I'm unable to speak. Take the young boy and leave. Who are you? Why? I am Hermes, Mercury, Thoth, your god." It was then the wisdom revealed to me through the voice of the greatest 3 names. "Take the young boy and leave." Like the strong wind of a storm, the voices echoed in my head. While I drowned in sudden silence, his 3 advisors, fully hidden under their plain black cloaks, approached me. They came closer and closer. Hermes' voice came back, louder and louder. "Take the young boy and run." Fear rushed through my whole body, and I was petrified. The three, they surrounded me. The next moment, I felt the sudden fall. Falling from the sky, falling into a pool of water. Water? But it stung my skin, bitter on my tongue. I am naked and bubbles forming, surrounding my entire body. But the bubbles burn like an infernal fire. The 3, they pulled me out, laid me on the stone table. They peeled off my skin. In great pain I screamed, but no voice came out of my mouth. Barely keeping my breath, I was drowned by my own blood. The silver needles going through my flesh, in and out, they stitched a piece of fair skin on me. But they soon realized it wasn't enough. His bone is too thick. We need his blessed soul. But we only have one descendant of the great. No, descendants of the great? The boy? Teleios? No. "I, Pedosiris." The woman awakens me from my nightmare, pointing her finger to the dawning sky. "Go back home. It's getting late." In worry, she said. But then she turned into dust and blown away by the twilight wind. "Not today." The voice of my lord echoed to me softly. "Mercury, Hermes, Thoth. I've learned my lessons throughout my life. I was such a fool for having that moment of doubt of my lord. When it happened, 60 years ago. But now, my lords have a mission for me to accomplish. I've been waiting for them. The Teleios. patting away the fallen leaves from my tunic. This fragile skin wasn't mine, wasn't Teleios's either. It pains me whenever the sun is up and high. Octavius, no, Augustus. He had reneged his own word. It was neither a cultural exchange nor a religious matter. He gained a thirst for power. One by one, the Hellenes, Egypt, and Parthia all fell to the Roman Empire. I had seen it happen through these eyes that weren't mine. From Augustus to Tiberius, then the crazy Caligula, then Claudius, and now Nero. I already knew the Teleios. They were on their way to me. My lord had told me everything through Hermes, but as a stubborn old soul, I am here waiting for them to come. I need to guide them toward the path of the righteous freedom. They must not fall to the hands of those wretched 3. The lady. Ma'am, the head of our enemy, Baraban, is seen at the back of their 3rd troops and their 2nd division. The cavalry had reconnoitered the surrounding terrain and came back to report his findings to a tall and lithe young lady. She removed her helmet, released her blonde light curls over her shoulder, a long ponytail tied on top of her head fashioned like a plume. She was lightly armored compared to her troops, leather skirt, shoulder pads, and elbow guards. Armed with a spear and a shield, she sat on top of a golden stallion. Scanning her surroundings with her sharp emerald eyes, the tall oak trees were widely distributed, with very little shrubs on the floor. She carefully surveyed the lands, meticulously mapping out the undulating hills and valleys, not missing every piece of stones on the ground. With a commanding gesture, she raised her hand, and the archers immediately sprang into action, readying their bow and arrows. They only have 2 divisions. We need to delay their front with long-range attacks, the lady commanded. Mattia, bring our best combat troops and get near the Baraban as fast as possible. Take down their leader. Yes, ma'am. A hoplite in plain brown linothorax replied bluntly. Before she hopped onto a horse, the blonde lady threw the spear at her. Don't pick up any gladius, the lady added, looking straight at the hoplite with a stern expression. But Mattia did not seem to care much about her words. The only weapon in her hands was the spear that she had just given her. She jumped onto a black stallion and left without waiting for the other troops who were supposed to follow her. Attack! It was the enemy's war cry, and the lady felt challenged when she heard them. Fire, she commanded. Their arrows rained on the approaching enemies, followed by balls of fire from the trebuchets. Their enemies were strong. All their men were large and fierce, especially Baraban. He was muscular and powerful. The name suggested that he was not Greek, but a foreigner from the east. With his mace, he broke skulls and crushed brains. Weaklings! All Syracusian are weaklings, he laughed. When Mattia and 2 other spearmen reached Baraban, the spearmen backed off a little. Aren't we supposed to attack him together? Petreius, said the larger spearman named Arctus. That crazy Kion can handle him by herself. We back the line. Petreius replied, and they immediately went back on defense, fending off attacks from the enemy troop. Mattia reached the monstrous Baraban, twice her size, the man flailing his mace in great speed. She dodged. The missing hits crushed the stones on the ground. She then kicked them toward him, aiming at his eyes, but his thick, coiled beard had blocked them. With a grin on his face, he snorted to clear the dust from his nose. He couldn't help but see her moves as if they were a child's play. Mattia attacked him with a spear, but he swerved it with ease by kicking her spear and nearly crushed her with a mace. She dodged it, again and again and again, until his mace hit a nearby tree trunk. While he unstuck his mace, Mattia took the opportunity to stab him. But he was strong, so strong that he stopped the attack simply by grabbing on the spearhead single-handedly. Crappy spear skills. You are not from Syracuse, Baraban smirked. He indeed was right. Yanking the spear with force, he sent her hurling towards a nearby trunk. Just as she was regaining her strength, he plunged the spear into her. She instantly rolled out of harm's way, narrowly avoiding the powerful swing of his mace. She needed to turn to evade another blow, while simultaneously getting close to his back and launching a spinning back fist toward his neck. But his forearm absorbed the impact, thwarting the attack. You do not look like a Greek, he said. Then they stood facing each other. Mattia couldn't help but notice their striking similarities. The matching tan skin, black hair, amber eyes. I came to Argos. Baraban landed a kick on her stomach while catching her off guard. I saw Argos. His kick was extremely powerful. It threw her away to a distance. I conquered Argos. He threw away the spear and waved his mace toward her. Syracuse will be my next destination, the man taunted while smashing his mace against her. She immediately rolled away and grabbed a nearby sword from a fallen enemy troop. There was a sudden change in her expression, from an emotionless to a now wearing a slight smile similar to Baraban's. He swung his mace again toward her. With speed and strength he stormed, but Matea did not avoid it this time. She sprinted forward, avoided his mace with his sword, sliding the blade along the staff, slicing Baraban's finger at the same time. Ah! Screaming in anger, his mace fell to the ground. Engulfed in rage, Baraban gave her an elbow strike, but his elbow hit her sword. Blood spilling everywhere. She pushed his forearm and yanked the sword hard, amputated his whole arm. Baraban fell to the ground. He never foresaw that coming. It wasn't her strength that the sword cut through his armored arm, but it was his own weight and his charging momentum against that sword. Sensing yet another arriving slash, he picked up the shield with his other arm right away, blocking her next attack on his vitals, but she did not, stabbing the sword to his thigh instead. Unexpected. Her moves were all random, not like well-trained warrior, but more like an insane ravenous predator craving for her hunt, or a tenacious prey, lying as many harmful blows as she could to survive. She stomped on his head and pulled out the sword from his thigh, stabbed it in the other arm, cutting his muscles and preventing him from retaliating. Ah! Baraban screamed in pain. He was only able to jolt and pull himself away from her with the still functioning arm. She slashed his shoulder and stabbed the sword to his waist, and it wasn't killing him. No, she was not allowed to kill him until the approval of the most honorable guest with a flip of a thumb. That was the rule of the game, and her role was to spill blood all over the arena, the more the merrier. Suddenly, a spear hit Baraban into his skull and ended his last breath. A bolus flew toward her and choked her neck. The lady smacked Matea with an iron shield. Swiftly, the lady landed herself from her horse. With her shield, she pressed Matea's arm against the ground, applied pressure until she released the sword. With a graceful movement, the lady kicked the sword up and caught it by its handle. In the blink of an eye, she cut down Baraban's head and raised the spear that pierced through his skull. "Baraban has fallen," she shouted. The soldiers around the area heard the news, and they paused their battle. "Baraban is fallen! Baraban is fallen!" All of the other troops echoed. The lady stood up and took a deep breath and shouted, "People of Argos, your leader, Baraban, is fallen. You have heard about Syracuse, a land blessed by the goddess of war, Athena, a land of freedom, justice, and prosperity. We call for your surrender. You do not have to die. We will not take away your families and loved ones. Join Syracuse, and you shall live without fear, without hunger and pain. I, Arete of Syracuse, proposed my sincere offer to you. Surrender, and you shall live." The enemy's troops dropped their weapons. With little hesitation, they raised the white flags with olive branches, and the battle ended with a loud cheer. The lady knew her strategy would work. She knew that the people of Argos would easily surrender once Baraban was killed. After all, he was a barbarian who had terrorized them and started the conflict. "Have you regained your sanity, Matea?" the lady asked while still stepping on the rope of the bolus that choked her. Yes, ma'am," she replied. "Good. Let's go back to Syracuse." She released her and gave the hand signal to her troops to retreat.